The first draft of yesterday afternoon, I typically write these in the afternoon between around 1 and 5 or 6 p.m. And then this morning, when Louise and I got up at 5:30, I turned on the TV, and twice while I was listening to TV, I heard people say, commentators on TV say, do we have to worry that Afghanistan is going to become another hotbed of terrorism that will be used to attack America? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. Afghanistan had little or nothing to do with 9/11. 9/11 was the Bin Laden apparently wrote the check. Where did he get the money? He got the money from Ronald Reagan and Saudi Arabia. Not a penny of this came from anybody in Afghanistan. No Afghan national, no Afghan government. They had nothing to do with the planning of 9/11. They had nothing to do with the payment for 9/11. They didn't know 9/11 happened. 9/11 was executed by 15 Saudis, a guy from Egypt, a guy from Lebanon, and there were two other people. I think they were Yemenis, I'm not sure. Oh, they were citizens of the United Arab Emirates. That's right, two from the UAE. Not a single Afghan was involved in 9/11. Oh, but wasn't Bin Laden running a terrorist training camp in Afghanistan? Yes, just like the Michigan militia runs them, in northern Michigan, where a bunch of yahoos get together, pay their $50 fee, and go out in the woods and shoot up trees. That had nothing to do with 9/11. But wasn't the planning for 9/11 done in Afghanistan? No, it was done in Hamburg, Germany. And then the what would you call him? A courier, I guess, is the word, from Germany traveled down to Afghanistan just before 9/11 to tell Bin Laden, hey, it's going to happen. Bin Laden at that point knew none of the operational details. That was all handled by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed out of Pakistan and Hamburg, Germany. And then they sent these Saudi hijackers to the United States, legally, by the way. They all came in on tourist visas. Actually, I think a couple of them came in on educational visas. We want to learn how to be pilots. And Mohammed Atta was down in Venice, Florida, along with a couple of the other guys, learning how to be a pilot. So it was planned in Germany. The final planning was done in Florida. Bin Laden at the time was in Pakistan getting blood transfusions because his kidneys were failing. And we decided to attack Afghanistan? Really? Because we said, 9/11 came from Afghanistan. But doesn't the Taliban hate America? The Taliban doesn't give a rat's ass about America if we would just stay the hell out of their country. Afghanistan fought off the Turks. They fought off the Mongol hordes. They fought off the Catholics. They fought off the Persians. They fought off the British. They fought off the Soviets. Well, I thought the Taliban wanted to create a worldwide... No, you're thinking of ISIS. ISIS wants to reestablish the caliphate across southern Europe, the Middle East, and northern Africa. That's ISIS. That's who, by the way, blew up the bombs yesterday that killed the people in Afghanistan. It wasn't the Taliban. The Taliban was trying to provide security. They want to run a country. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Taliban. They're throwbacks to the 12th century. But they're not the ones who attacked us on 9/11. George Bush and Dick Cheney would like you to think that. Because, hey, if we're going to have a war to try to get reelected in 2004, why not have a war against a country where the average income is $2 a day, where there's no Air Force to speak of, and where their army is a joke? Let's take on that country. Sort of like just, a little earlier when the humiliating explosion happened in Lebanon that killed over 100 U.S. Marines, as I recall, during the Reagan administration. What was Reagan's response? Let's invade Grenada. Remember? Bin Laden was very clear about why he attacked the United States. It had nothing to do with Afghanistan. He attacked the United States. He told us in 1996 that he was going to do this. Because back in the early 90s, when George Herbert Walker Bush was president of the United States, and he thought, Having a little war, just like Ronald Reagan had his little war in Grenada and it helped him get reelected in 1984, maybe if we have a little war in, say, Iraq, just a 3-day war, just a little war, it'll help us get reelected in 1992. And so Bush did it. But in order to get the weapons and the airplanes into Iraq, they needed a staging base for that war. So he talked Saudi Arabia into, for the first time, letting Americans take over the Bin Sultan Air Force Base and a Saudi Air Force Base. And we never left. Or at least we didn't. I'll tell you when we left in just a second. But so we took over this Air Force Base in Saudi Arabia. And Osama bin Laden, and by the way, a significant chunk of the Saudi population, bin Laden was not alone in this. Bin Laden was expressing an opinion that was held by fundamentalists across the region, particularly in Saudi Arabia, was saying, wait a minute, the war is over. It lasted 3 days. Get your people the hell out of here. You've got men who are watching porn and drinking alcohol on sacred Saudi soil. And you've got women who are showing their elbows and driving cars and probably having sex with the men without being married. They're certainly not covering their faces on sacred Saudi soil. Get the hell out of our country. In 1996, bin Laden said, this is September 2nd, 1996, we are going to launch a guerrilla war against American forces and expel the infidels from the Arabian Peninsula. End quote. 2 years later, in 1998, bin Laden met privately with a reporter for The Guardian. Quote, we believe we are the men, Muslim men, committed to defending the grandest house in the universe. The holy Saudi Kaaba land is an honor to die and defend. So this is our aim, to liberate the lands of Islam, of Saudi Arabia, from the sinners. End quote. The next year, in a letter to America that was published in the New York Times, Osama bin Laden wrote, quote, your forces occupy our country. You spread your military bases throughout it. You corrupted our lands. You besiege our sanctities. You protect the security of the Jews and to ensure the continuity of your pillage of our treasures. End quote. 9/11 was all about bin Laden saying, get the hell out of Saudi Arabia. And by the way, right after 9/11, guess what President George W. Bush did? He pulled all the American forces out of Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden got exactly what he asked for. And it's not like this was a surprise. Richard Clark, the security advisor for President Clinton, came on this program back in 2002. Or maybe it was 2003. Whatever it was. It must have been 2003 because that's when we started our show in March of 2003. Came on this program and said, I personally told Condoleezza Rice that bin Laden was going to strike the United States if we didn't get out of it, out of that Air Force base in Saudi Arabia. And I know that Al Gore told that to Dick Cheney, and I know that Bill Clinton told that to George W. Bush, and they basically laughed at us. So why does the media keep saying, oh, gee, if we leave Afghanistan, there's going to be terrorism attacking the United States, when it was never that in the first place? Well, because it's a convenient story that gives Bush and Cheney cover. They wanted a war for re-election purposes, and they got their war. It's that simple. And the war, by the way, was over in fewer than 3 weeks. That's how long it took to take down the Taliban government. And then we started a 20-year occupation, and don't get me started all about that. But this all goes back to Pappy Bush's war that he lied us into, by the way. There were no babies being thrown out of incubators. That was a stunt put together by an American PR firm with a princess from a former Kuwaiti princess testified, lying to the United States Congress, saying they're throwing babies out of incubators, those nasty Iraqi soldiers. George Herbert Walker Bush wanted to lie us into a little war so he could get himself reelected. In doing so, he put soldiers in Saudi Arabia, pissed off Osama bin Laden, and he struck us on 9/11. Let's tell the friggin' truth about what happened. I mean, if the media is going to ask questions, they need to ask the right questions. Here are my 3 nominees. You can add whatever you want, and then it's anything goes Friday, other than, Joe dropping by. Number 1, how did Bush and Cheney get away with lying us into a war and a 20-year occupation of Afghanistan and nearly that long in Iraq without political or historic consequences? Number 2, why did the Bush, Obama, and Trump administrations, 3 administrations, 2 Republican, 1 Democratic, why did they, all knowing that these occupations were a lost cause and a waste of American blood and treasure, why didn't they get us out before now? And number 3, what can we do in the Middle East and elsewhere around the world, if that is our goal, to promote peace, modernity, and democratic values without using warplanes, drones, soldiers, and bombs? When we start asking those questions, when we start having that conversation, then America will have grown up. But right now, we're still stuck in this infantile stage where we are giving an absolute pass to George W. Bush and Dick Cheney for lying to us, for their war crimes, for their torture, for everything else. And somehow the Republicans are turning the outcome of these lies into a political problem for Joe Biden, for God's sake, who's just trying to clean up the mess that was left in by 3 previous presidents that was started by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Let's tell the truth about this. Damn it, let's do it.